Stop eating healthy foods. They might be slowing your fat loss. You think you're doing everything right. You swapped the chips for rice cakes. You're drinking green smoothies. You cut out fast food and started eating what every wellness influencer calls clean, wholesome, healthy food. And yet, the scale isn't moving the way you expected. Your clothes feel tighter. Your energy is inconsistent. And at some point, you start wondering, what am I doing wrong? Here's the truth most people don't realize. Some foods marketed as healthy can easily work against your fat loss goals, not because they're inherently bad, but because of how they affect hunger, calorie intake, and how much you end up eating without realizing it. Today, I'll walk you through a few of the most common ones, why they can become a problem, and what to do instead, so you can actually see results from the effort you're putting in. Let's start with one of the biggest offenders, granola. Granola has a strong health reputation, and on the surface, it makes sense. Oats, nuts, maybe some dried fruit. But here's where it gets tricky. Granola is extremely calorie-dense. A small serving about a quarter cup can be 200 to 300 calories. And realistically, most people pour 2 or 3 times that without thinking. Add yogurt, fruit, maybe some honey, and suddenly you've got a breakfast that can quietly push 600 to 800 calories. That's not inherently bad, but if your goal is fat loss, it becomes very easy to overshoot your needs before your day even starts. And because it's not very filling relative to those calories, you're often hungry again soon after. Next, flavored yogurt. Plain Greek yogurt? Great. High in protein, very filling. But many flavored versions come with 15 to 25 grams of added sugar per serving. That doesn't make them junk, but it does mean they're closer to a dessert than a high-protein staple. The bigger issue is this. Foods that combine lower protein with higher sugar tend to be less satisfying, which can lead to more snacking later. A simple swap plain Greek yogurt with your own fruit gives you the same experience with more control and better satiety. Now let's talk about smoothies. Smoothies feel like the ultimate healthy choice. Fruit, maybe some greens, almond milk, protein powder, and they can be great, but they're also one of the easiest ways to consume a lot of calories very quickly. When you blend food, you make it much easier and faster to consume, which often means you don't feel as full compared to eating those same foods whole. A smoothie with multiple servings of fruit, juice, and extras can climb to 500 plus calories without much effort. Again, not a problem by itself, but if you're also eating normal meals, it adds up fast. If you like smoothies, a simple fix is keep fruit to 1 to 2 servings. Prioritize protein. Avoid using juice as a base. Let's move to whole wheat bread. Yes, it's generally a better choice than white bread, more fiber, slightly more nutrients. But better doesn't automatically mean optimal for your goal. Bread is still relatively easy to overeat, not especially filling for the calories, and often paired with other calorie-dense foods. For some people, that combination makes it harder to stay in a calorie deficit without realizing it. Now, a more nuanced one: vegetable oils. Oils like canola, sunflower, and soybean oil are widely used in packaged foods and restaurants. The issue isn't that they're toxic, it's that they're pure fat and very calorie-dense, and they're easy to consume in large amounts without noticing. A tablespoon is about 120 calories. Salad dressings, cooking oils, sauces, it adds up quickly. So you can be eating a healthy salad that ends up higher in calories than the meal you were trying to avoid. And finally, trail mix. Nuts and dried fruit absolutely have nutritional value, but trail mix is a perfect storm of calorie density. Easy overeating. Low awareness of portion size, dried fruit in particular, is much easier to overconsume than whole fruit. A small handful can contain the same calories as multiple pieces of fresh fruit, but without the same level of fullness. Now here's where things get interesting. There's something called the health halo effect. When we perceive a food as healthy, we tend to eat more of it. Underestimate how many calories it contains. Feel less guilty adding extra cob. That's not a lack of discipline, it's just how our brains work. And food companies understand this. That's why packaging emphasizes words like natural, organic, wholesome, because it changes how we behave around the food. So what's the solution? It's not about cutting out all these foods. It's about being more intentional. Start with this. 1. Pay attention to calorie density. Foods that pack a lot of calories into small portions are easier to overeat. 2. Prioritize protein and whole foods. Meals built around protein, vegetables, and minimally processed foods tend to keep you full longer. 3. Be mindful of liquid calories. Drinks don't fill you up the same way solid food does, which makes it easier to overconsume. 4. Watch portions, even with healthy foods. Healthy doesn't mean unlimited. And most importantly, you're not failing. If anything, you've been putting in effort. You just weren't given the full picture. Once you understand how these foods actually impact your hunger and intake, everything starts to click. Fat loss becomes less about restriction and more about awareness. Drop a comment and tell me which of these surprised you the most. And if you want a simple, realistic breakdown of what a full day of eating can look like for fat loss, that's what I'm covering in the next video.